Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
We'll have guests stopping by tomorrow. As a matter of fact, Ray Dittinger, the Hall of Fame writer, will talk about the Eagles and their march
Not bad.
to what I think will be the number one seed. It's just the attrition rate for the Detroit Lions is so tremendous right now.
David Montgomery, McNeil is out, I believe, as well for the year.
They have lost 52% of their first and second team defense.
Which is psychotic. And the fact that they're still in this and still playing as well as they are.
Well, right now they're the number one seed because the tiebreakers have a better conference record than the Eagles do. That's the current tiebreaker. But let's face it, the ability to hang on is going to be tough. But, yeah, that's – and the other guest tomorrow will be Phillips, the play-by-play voice of SMU football.
Very nice.
Rich Phillips will join us tomorrow on the show as well, and we'll get a read from him as to what they've done this season. Quarterbacks that have transferred.
Yes.
I want to get into this for a moment because, as usual, ignorance rules the day because people just don't do their research. They have this thing called Google.
Yes.
Which you can use. But I'm going to post it anyway because I'm smart. Sure you are. Okay, so let's go back to a year ago. What backup quarterback would transfer the college football playoff and leave the program? Oh, I don't know. Malik McNeil?
Yes.
Last year with Texas?
Or Malik Murphy.
Malik Murphy at Texas? Okay, let's start with this premise. Again, under the category of anybody who's like, who doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, and really, to their crowd, I'll just say it blunt. You just don't know anything. Okay? Who was the third-string quarterback at Texas last year? It was Arch Manning. Manning was not the backup quarterback. Not the backup quarterback. McNeil was the backup quarterback. And when Ewers got hurt last year, McNeil started 2 games, or Murphy started 2 games. Murphy started 2 games. And then before the college football playoff, he opted out to put his name in the transfer portal. And that's when Manning became the backup quarterback. Murphy ended up at Duke, helped Manny Diaz get to a 9-3 record, and then promptly put his name back in the transfer portal.
Is now back in there.
Okay? Who's the number 3 seed in this year's college football playoff? Boise State. What about their backup quarterback? He put his name in the transfer portal. He's gone.
Oh, Malachi Nelson.
Malachi Nelson went from USC to Boise State. He's the backup quarterback now. He's not with the roster any longer. Okay? It happens.
Yeah.
Why? Quarterbacks are a sought-after commodity, and the calendar just is all wrong.
You know who else in the portal, by the way? The backup quarterback for SMU, Preston Stone.
But he's staying.
He's staying,
okay,
but he also entered the portal.
Right. And so did Devin Brown at Ohio State, and so did the 4th-string quarterback at Ohio State.
Norman. Yeah.
Right.
Air Norman.
Right. So they
Air Noland.
Right. So they're out. Okay. Now, I believe that Devin Brown is staying.
Believe so, yes. As of this moment, he is still in the portal, but he's staying.
Nolan hasn't said yet what he's doing, but he's the 4th-string guy.
Yeah.
Okay. But this happens. Okay, it happened to Malik Murphy last year. What player would opt out? Quarterback. Excuse me. Okay, it happened at Texas.
Yeah.
Arch Manning was the 3rd-string quarterback last year. When Ewers got hurt, Murphy was the starter.
Yeah,
and they won. When the season was over, Murphy transferred, and Arch Manning, for the first time in his career, ascended to the number 2 quarterback spot. Murphy ended up at Duke. They go 9-3. Murphy's back in the transfer portal. Malachi Nelson transfers to Boise State, thinks he's going to win the starting job there, does not win the starting job, ends up being the backup quarterback, okay? Name in the transfer portal. He's done. He's gone. Okay? Okay, this happens.
All the time. Like, literally, it happens constantly. You have players in the portal all over the place. A lot of players have pretty much opted out, by the way, of bowl games across the board. John Mateer for Washington State meant to play Syracuse in the Holiday Bowl. He opted out. Kyle McCord staying at Syracuse and not going to the... He's not leaving early.
You know what's interesting is the number of players are actually going to play in bowl games.
A lot more are staying.
I mean, I believe it may be tied to their NIL deals.
I would guess that. And
that's a guess on my part as well, but I think it's an educated guess. But Jackson Dart, for example, playing in the bowl game. Okay, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter playing in the bowl game. They're playing in the Alamo Bowl. Kyle McCord playing in the bowl game. It's kind of a pity thing for him. Oh, that's your team. I forgot.
Hey, he finished, 10th in Heisman voting, which for me at least means something.
I think he got a first-place vote.
He did. He got a first-place vote for it. And the person who voted for him, I don't believe, went to Syracuse, from what the rumors are. So that's a positive thing for me. But speaking of, by the way, Tyler Warren got 7th, I think, in Heisman voting, right behind Cam Scadaboo.
He was 7th.
So,
there are a lot more name players that are actually going to play in bowl games, and I believe, and it's just a guess on my part, that it may be tied to their NIL deals.
And my guess is the players who might be entering it, so someone, I don't know what John Mateer is making at Washington State. I have no idea. I don't pretend to know. I would educated guess, because he is the top quarterback in the portal, that he's sitting there, and he'll probably end up getting more by entering now and getting to a top program versus staying, playing in this game, and then going to someone else later. Because, by the way, the bowl game, the Holiday Bowl, is on the 28th. So he would physically have to leave before the bowl game anyway. So for him, either it's you can try and get more money now or stay. If there is an NIL incentive to stay for him, he's probably going to end up getting more from going somewhere else in the long run anyway.
Right. So, but that did interest me. The number of players that actually... I mean, there'll be players that opt out, but there's a lot of star power that stayed. I mean, Jackson Dart, Ole Miss, I'm playing.
Ole Miss is going to have a good bowl game. They're going to have a good team playing. Like, a real, actual team for Ole Miss is going to be playing in the bowl game.
Yeah, which is... they did that last year, too. You know, because, I mean, Judkins transferred to Ohio State, but he played in the bowl game against Penn State.
Yeah.
So
Trey Harris played in the bowl game. He was incredible.
Well, Trey Harris played for them this year, too.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's my point, is like he's still, regardless, he could have opted into the portal, whatever. He stayed, played well. It's very nice to see. There are a lot of players, though, entering the portal, and a lot of players that are now...
Okay, backup quarterbacks make sense. Look, they're looking for their shot. I mean, if you're Malik Murphy a year ago, I'm looking at the depth chart, and yours, let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, let's be directly honest. He's a third-round pick.
Yes.
Oh, he's a first-rounder.
No.
Well, watch the games, okay? He's probably a third-rounder. He's not going anywhere. Okay? Arch Manning is not going anywhere. You know, this is, I'm telling you, let's turn the clock back a year ago.
Yes.
Okay?
Arch Manning is not leaving.
Right? Arch Manning's not leaving at that point. So Murphy's like, I'm not going to play. He goes to Duke. They go 9-3. He had a good year. Now he's back in the portal.
But he's put himself in now a position to play at an even higher level.
Right. So for a backup quarterback, let's face it, the portal was made for them.
Yeah. It was made for the Bo
is sitting
Capulas.
there, and he's on the same. Okay, the clock is a little bit misaligned because he redshirted his true freshman year. But he did it in such a way where his thought process is, hey, he knows that his teammate, Drew Allar, has all the traits that you would look for in an NFL quarterback. So I'm sure the thought process had to be, hey, after 3 years, he can go to the NFL draft. Well, when Drew opted not to go to the NFL draft and opted to come back, Bo's looking around saying, I could be the starter for 1 year, or I can go someplace be the starter for 2. And that's and guys want to play. And I always say that players determine who starts, who plays. Now, okay, it's not like being a running back, right? It's not like being a wide receiver. You'll play anywhere from 4 to 6 wide receivers in a game. You'll end up playing 2, 3 running backs in a game. Penn State plays 3 tight ends in the game. But you play essentially 1 quarterback.
Yes.
Right? And that's the difference right there. The fact that there's one person that's taking almost all the snaps.
Yeah.
You know? And so it does come into play. So when the Malik Murphys transfer, I get it. When Malachi Nelson transfers, I get it. When Bo says he needs a transfer and the clock's all wrong, I get it. But now you got to play the game. And it's 72 today in Dallas, by the way. Now here it's pretty warm. I mean,
it's 47.
It's going to get to 50 degrees here today. Right?
Real hot, real steamy today, which is a good thing for us to melt the snow.
When you talk about cold weather, see, the difference is nobody likes to play in it.
No.
Okay, anybody, I love playing in cold weather. It's like, oh, please. Right? Okay, people don't like to play in it. I got it. You know, football's one of those sports. You play in it. The difference is the experience it and figuring out how to play in it. Penn State played at Minnesota. Game time temperature. Okay, I remember they was talking it was going to be like 30 degrees at kickoff. You know, Brian Tripp, our sideline guy, was all concerned. It ended up being 36 at game time with really no wind. But it was 36. By the end of the game, it was about 29 or 30 because the sun had gone down at that point. It got colder. Didn't have a lot of wind, but it got colder. So Penn State played in low 30s, upper 20s conditions. A week later, they played Maryland here. And the kickoff temperature was 26.
It was cold.
And the wind chill was 10. Okay? And it dropped from there. So Penn State has played in two games where it was cold. One with, the big plus when you have little wind is a huge plus. Right? I mean, it's cold, but it's not like it's not cutting through you like a knife.
As someone who went to a school in upstate New York, the wind is what kills you.
Right. But it was cold. So they played in that one, and then they played in a game with cold and wind. So they've at least experienced it, and it's not going to be a shock to the system. They've done it. And they did it twice recently. Okay? 2 of their last 3 games were in those kind of conditions. SMU? No.
Can they artificially find like an igloo somewhere and go play football in an igloo for a week? Is that possible?
Nope. There's nothing you can do. I remember when Utah went to play Florida. It was the opening game of the season. Utah wet their indoor practice facility down. Right? Shut all the windows and attempted to create humidity.
Yeah. Right. You can at least attempt to do that. You kind of can't keep a place completely cold. You can't. It's physically. It's almost impossible to make it as cold as you'd need to.
And,
you can.
I mean, people do try things, which I got it.
There's all the videos of teams putting on the noise machines everywhere to simulate noise going into a big game, big stadium.
Oh, sure. Oh, believe me. You mean you're I know the noise drill like the back of my hand. Or, could you repeat that again? What did you say? What? One more time? Noise drill. Noise drill.
Yeah.
It was Zachy Williams' birthday is today. See Zach around all the time, around football. What a great dude.
Yeah.
He is. I mean, I'm sorry you can't create that. So.
No, not really. So it's interesting to see how they'll fare when they do end up coming here. Of course, we'll find out, and we'll talk more about it, or you'll talk more about it tomorrow with the voice of SMU.
Rich Phillips. I don't think I'm going to bring it up. I I think we're just going to talk about the team, the players, the personnel, things like that. I don't think I'm going to bring it up.
That's fair.
Right? He's on a need-to-know basis. He didn't need to know.
In speaking of quarterbacks leaving, something that I found interesting. Not interesting.
Caleb Williams leave?
No.
Transfer out? Leave the Bears?
Someone who thought he'd be Caleb Williams, DJ Uiagalelei, has opted for the draft. So, that's, I guess, a thing.
Look, I mean, it screams third day or free agent.
Yeah.
There are star players, okay, in terms of 5-star players. And a lot of people get enamored with the 5-star player. Look, for the most part, these players have earned the 5-star ranking. But then you have to play out the 5-star part of it. And that's one of the issues in terms of living up to hype as to who you are at the time. Player development means a lot. And what I've always admired of what James has done, which was the same as what Joe did, is they could take a 3-star guy and make him into a 4.5. They can take a 4-star guy and make him into a 5-star guy. Okay? Look at Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren's a 5-star guy right now.
Yeah.
He was not a 5-star guy coming out.
No.
Okay? And then there's a guy like DJ Uiagalelei. And he comes out with all the hype. He's out of California. And I'm talking about all of the hype a quarterback can have. Now, he sits initially because he's behind Trevor Lawrence. Okay, so that's working out fine. And when he finally gets his first opportunity, and I want to say that opportunity was against, I think, Georgia. Was the first game he played in.
And I think it sounds about right, honest, for me. I think that sounds right.
Once again, quieting the doubters.
Hey, I never doubted you. I don't doubt you.
Oh, God, you're killing me.
What?
Unbelievable.
I'm not Jerry Valeri.
He's incapable of killing me. Not quick enough.
No.
And everybody's like, okay, he kind of hung in, whatever. And his Clemson career ends up being okay. And the problem is when you have the 5-star label, it's easier to disappoint than it is to match it.
Yeah.
And of course, at Clemson, he was considered a disappointment. Well, he finally transfers out. Cade Klubnik's there. Okay. And he goes to Oregon State. I saw him play at Oregon State. Like, he was under the category of like, oh, not bad. I thought, yeah, it's a good spot for him to land in.
Yeah.
And then he transfers out. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Excuse me. He transfers out. He goes to Florida State, and you could tell in game number 1 against Georgia Tech and Ireland, they've got a problem. He's not good enough to carry them.
The other problem was that they needed him to carry them, and he wasn't good enough to, and they didn't have a good enough roster to deal with the fact that he wasn't the greatest quarterback of all time.
Right. I mean, and I don't blame him. He's been in school now 5 years. Yeah. Of course he's going to the draft. And it's just one of those that a part of me feels bad for him because you get all this hype. I remember it was on Sirius XM. He announced his decision to go to Clemson, right? It's like, oh.
And he was meant to be the heir apparent to Trevor Lawrence, and it was this whole thing because he was going to take the spot behind Lawrence over Cade Klubnik, who's also going to go there. It was this whole thing.
Well, Klubnik came after.
But it was like a year of like, he gets there, Klubnik comes, but it's like, oh, Uiagalelei is the guy who's going to take us to the future.
Right. and he'd learn under him. Like, okay, we're done. And that, there's a part of me that feels bad for him.
Yeah.
I mean, because you get so much hype, and with all that hype comes expectation. And I've always said, hey, look, I don't mind expectation, for goodness sakes, because I'd rather have expectation than apathy.
Yeah.
But you could just tell it wasn't going to work out. And, so he's going to go to the draft, and his college saga will be over with. And look, nobody should be in life labeled as a bust at the age of 22 or 23. Wait to like Jerry Valeri's age, and then we'll make the assessment. What?
Oh boy.
What? I try to be fair here.
Uyunglele found himself in the portal twice, and I know we ended yesterday before Franklin's press conference, which is where you end up finding yourself. Franklin talked a lot yesterday about this. His comments have now gone mega viral.
Well,
talking about the portal.
But I point out he was asked about it.
He was asked about it, and he answered it in the most both honest way and the way that you want someone to answer it, which is there is a problem. Perdula was asked to make a ridiculous decision, and every player has come out and said they love Bo and they support him, and that's true. Like, they do. And also, it's ridiculous, as we've said and talked about.
I'm around it all the time, okay? His teammates love this guy. Yeah. He loves Penn State. He loves being here. You know? But again, he has a guy in front of him that is the starting quarterback about to make his 27th start. But the calendar is all wrong.
Yeah. It's all messed up.
Well, it's all messed up because, look, okay, and I talked about this yesterday. I'll just quickly do a cliff notes on this, then we'll go on to other topics because it's all about SMU this week. I mean, you got to go with what you have.
Yeah.
All right. I was talking with Jack Ham yesterday. Wanted me to tell you hi and wanted to make sure Jerry wasn't around.
Hi, Jack.
Tell Kyle hi. He says, that Jerry guy isn't around, is he?
No.
Don't worry about it.
No, he wouldn't be around. Jack is safe. He doesn't have to worry. No worries here.
So, Jack's a businessman. My father was a businessman. Right? Both Jack and my father started their businesses from scratch. Both ended up being successful businessmen because of what they did. Jack in coal brokerage, my father in a sheet metal fabrication shop. Started ground floor, each one. Right? When you're running a business, look, there are going to be ups, downs, pitfalls, but your job in part when you're running it is to anticipate trends, okay? Make some educated, strong guesses on the future and play to that. And I've told the story before about my dad buying this $1 million machine, right? That it was a press brake and it was electronic, boom, and it bent parts. It was precision, the whole thing. And I said, Dad, that's a lot of money. And he looks at me and he says, Steve, he says, the idea is that, he says, it'll make us money. I said, okay. Right? Well, it did. Okay? But that's the ability to look at trends. Now let's get to the NCAA. Okay? In a business world, they're a disaster. Okay? And this is why they're a disaster in the business world. They do now let's talk about what they do well. They do very well at running championships. And the NCAA women's volleyball tournament, they're going to go to the Final Four in Louisville. They're going to play Thursday night against Nebraska. That's one of many championships the NCAA runs. Vermont just won the men's soccer championship, for example. The NCAA does an excellent job of running championships. You also want them as an investigative body because, look, conferences and schools don't want to do their own investigations. But as a regulatory body of putting rules together, they have never once been able to foresee the future of where things were going in college. Even when they were sued and told, hey, look, this is what the future is going to look like. They fought it tooth and nail because they wanted it to stay 1965. That's not a forward-thinking body. Right? Everyone could see where this was going. They should have put rules in place and then started tweaking rules 20, 25 years ago. All they've done is react to court cases. And whenever you're reacting, it is a recipe for disaster. And right now, all this clock management as to how things go during the course of the year is a disaster because all they've done is react and there's been no true thought put into it. That's because they don't understand how to anticipate trends.
Nope.
And the trends have been handed to them on a silver platter because of lawsuits. The lawsuits have told them what the trends were going to be, and they never came up with a plan to react to losing. Their entire reaction to losing was to appeal. How about you got 365 days. How about sitting down and putting together a plan while we're going through the appeal process? Because, look, we're on track to losing here.
Yeah.
Let's put together a plan that makes sense for everybody. You've got the time to do it. The lawyers are the ones handling the case, not you. And when Mark Emmert got up, I want to say it was the Ed O'Bannon trial. It had to do with EA Sports. You know, I think you're winning the game right now, aren't you? Do you have the game?
College football?
Yeah.
I do not.
Oh, God. I mean,
EA Sports. It's in the game.
Okay.
Aw, come on.
All right. Okay. O'Bannon's in there, and Mark Emmert gets up on the witness stand, and he starts giving the ivory tower speech. You know, we're higher education. We're here to educate. There's student athletes, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there, and I'm reading this, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell is he doing? He's handing the case to O'Bannon on a silver platter. People don't care about that stuff. Okay?
No.
This is about money, you overstepping on the money tree, putting guys in the game where it's obvious who it is. They put him on the cover. Okay? With no compensation, they put him on the cover.
No.
Okay? And people want to know, where does the money go? If he got up there and said, look, we've been taking the money and we've been putting it into women's soccer. We've been putting it into women's volleyball. We've been putting it into men's soccer. Things like that. That's where the money goes. That's why we have all of these initiatives in place. And if you start telling people, I mean, how many of you believe in Title IX? Now, you may not win the case, but at least you were real with people and gave yourself the best shot at winning the case. The second his testimony was over with, right, I said to somebody, I think it was here, I said, well, the NCAA's cooked. I said, in fact, if I'm the defense attorney, right, for the plaintiff, I'm sitting there going, we have no questions. We're good. I mean, to give the testimony he gave was one of those, like, you have a lot of degrees, but you're not smart. I mean, this is where the NCAA is. And then all of a sudden, oh, I can't believe we lost. What do you mean you can't believe you lost?
Crazy. By the way, as we speak, SMU's coach Rhett Lashley is talking, doing his media time.
Good. He's a good coach, by the way. He's a very good coach.
He's a very good coach. This is from him talking about Tyler Warren, saying, quote, I don't think we can stop him. Maybe we can slow him down. Maybe we can make other players impact the game. I don't disagree with him that you can't stop Tyler Warren. There are certain players in all sports, like all games, where it's always been discussed of, we need to stop this guy. There are certain forces you can't stop. Like watching an NBA game, you can't stop LeBron. You can slow him down a little bit. You're not going to stop him at the end of the day. He's still going to do what he wants to do. And in this case, Tyler Warren is still going to be impactful because they're going to put him in a position to be impactful across the board.
Well,
they're going to try and take him away on 5 plays versus letting him get 12.
Right. Well, let's take Jennings, their quarterback. Okay? One of the keys is not just, quote, getting to him.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to get into him, contain him. Where now he's not outside the pocket. Now he's creating. Now he could run.
Yeah.
It's part of that containment part of it. Right? And I'm sure that's what they're thinking. Let's just contain whatever Warren does. Let's make sure if he makes a catch, it's like 8 yards, and it's not an 8-yard that turns into 28. Right? It's sometimes with really good players, and Jennings, for example, is a really good player. How do you contain him so he's working within the structure of what you want him to be in, as opposed to, okay, now it's where I can really excel.
And coming from Joe Smeltzer again on Twitter, these are where I'm getting these quotes from. Rhett Lashley said, quote, Abdul Carter is the best defensive end I've seen since I've been coaching at SMU, and this is based on film, but he looks good. And again, I think it's a pretty easily agree. He's pretty gosh darn good, Abdul Carter. He's pretty good at what he does.
Yeah, I was on the Ohio State. Yesterday was the day I decided to load up on let's do as many talk shows as possible. So I got 4 in the books done. And one of them was Ohio State. And I'm trying to think, maybe Jim Lachey asked me this. And he asked me about Carter. And I said, Jim, look, I said, you played the position as an All-American in Ohio State and in the NFL for years, especially with Washington. I said, when Carter was strictly a linebacker, I said, when he'd blitz, who would pick him up? I said, normally it would be a running back. I said, maybe he'd get chipped by somebody, but normally a running back. I said, the move to defensive end meant he was going against somebody like you. Good feet, arm length, and so forth, where he had to use his speed and some of his power. Carter's a strong guy. But he had to use his speed, his technique against a bigger man. I said, and the fact that he did it in 1 year and succeeded the way he did tells you what a special player he is.
And I remember talking about it at the start of the season. People were like, oh, he looks raw. And I was like, well, that's because he just switched position. It's going to take him a minute to build into it. And spoiler, as the year went on, he was a snowball rolling downhill. He got better and better and better every single game as the year went on. And he's coming into this game as probably what I feel is the most impactful player on the field, because he will be able to stop Jennings. He'll be able to stop the run. Abdul Carter is a one-man wrecking crew. And by the way, as we've seen and discussed every single game, when Abdul Carter plays well, all of a sudden, it opens up more lanes for Zane Durant, Deni Dennis Sutton, and everyone else on the defense. It also
opens up the door to turnovers.
Yeah.
Because now if you can get there and you can make him rush a play, the door could be open to a turnover. And remember, he's doing this at 250. 259. Deni is 270. Now, Deni is a taller man.
Yeah.
Right? But don't forget Deni Dennis Sutton in all of this.
He's a monster.
Harvey and Roberts are 2 very good defensive ends for SMU. What's interesting about them is they're big once in a while. They'll take the 2 defensive ends, and instead of having them on each side, they'll bring them over to the same side. Right? Which is interesting.
Double up.
Then they'll run a stunt. But they're good players. But Carter is a guy that what I really admire, and Jack and I have talked about this because, we physically see this. After practices, he'll be with Torrance Brown. After practice, he'll be with Deion Barnes, working on technique, working on takeoff, working on the hoop. Put the hoop down, use it, in terms of gauging pass rush, things like that. Practice is over. You're still working on your craft. And that means a lot as to how much he cares about his craft, cares about his future, cares about winning. And look, will he be a tough matchup for them? Yes, he will. I think the tackles for SMU are good, but they are not in the category of Oregon. Also, the 2 Oregon tackles are both second-team All-Americans.
And Abdul Carter got after both of them
he did.
in that game.
Right, he did. Because he's a great player.
Yeah, just Dylan Gabriel just is a great quarterback and was able to find the spaces and gets the ball out.
And
he gets the ball out in like half a second.
Gabriel got to that fumble before Abdul did. And
Yeah.
Gabriel fumbled it.
Oh, my God.
That was like one of those split second, like, it's not your night.
Yeah.
Like,
If Abdul is just as a
because
a
Penn
half
State
step
would have had
ahead.
the ball at the 25-yard line, you're like,
Yeah. But again, the fact that Abdul still did that while Dylan Gabriel, like, pretty much remained untouched for that game. He got sacked, I believe, once in the game. So Gabriel stayed on his feet for most of the time.
Gabriel's a good player. Those
But
two tackles, though, Cornelius
they're incredible.
and the other kid, are just
Connolly.
really
Yeah.
Connolly and Cornelius are really good players. I mean, and I give them all the credit in the world. Right? That was a good battle all night because Denai and Abdul won some, and those two tackles, Connolly and Cornelius, won some.
Yeah. So it is going to be a battle. Abdul is a problem. We're seeing a lot of these players. They're going to be good. I talked about it with Jason Lord. The episode is not premiered yet. We have a podcast. I have a podcast. Okay, it's at Mountain Sports on Demand.
How much do you have to carry this guy?
I don't carry him at all. He carries me.
That's one of the saddest statements I've ever heard. It's like saying Jerry Valera carries the station.
Jeez. And as we near closer and close to the game, there's certain players I want to talk about throughout the days with you and just pick your brain on. Because as someone learning the game, I know many people here, we don't know as much as you do. So we want to pick your brain.
All you do is just throw darts, I guess.
And the player who has excited me the most this season in terms of what they have done and how they've used him, Tom Allen on defense, Zion Tracy. Because he is who, and I know I said Abdul playing so well benefits tonight and Sutton, Zane Durant, the defensive line. I think it benefits Zion Tracy the most because Tracy and Jalen Reed have blitzed off the edge a lot. And when they do, they tend to get the quarterback like 80% of the time, it feels. And if you are...
Tracy's really good.
He's good. But if you are Carter blitzing, if you're Carter coming after the quarterback and you get doubled, leaves a man open. And that man ends up being Zion Tracy a lot of the time.
Yep.
Like, how has he looked this season to you watching him play versus even last year when I believe he started at cornerback against Ole Miss?
It is a lot of fun when you see a young player grow the way Zion Tracy has grown this season. Like, he's out there, okay, he's getting his feet wet, getting a little more time, and all of a sudden you're watching him in practice going, he needs a lot more time. Like, he's starting to play here. Part of what you do when you're a defensive back, I don't care whether you're blitzing or you're in coverage, okay? The two things that you need beyond the athletic, I'm talking about besides athletic ability, because Tracy is fast, he's got terrific hands, the whole thing. But you have to see it and believe it. Okay? If you see it and you believe it, you start making plays. If you see it and then you react to it, you're a half step off. Tracy's vision and his ability to believe what he's seeing, right? Okay, they're doing this. I got it. They're doing this. I got it. To go with his breaking the ball, natural athletic ability, good hands, right? His ability to time up a blitz, right? Because timing is seeing it and believing it. Okay, you're timing up the blitz because you're anticipating in part what the snap count is. Right? Boom. And scrape. You want to scrape off the edge of somebody where now you put whomever's trying to block in conflict. He's done some really, really good stuff. I mean, he is one of the single most improved players on this team this season.
He's been incredible.
And his job as a punt returner, right? I mean, I understand why they called the fair catch in the Oregon game, but he wasn't trying to fair catch it. He was trying to, like, he was just kind of running over.
He was Peter.
Right. Well, no, he caught the ball.
Yeah.
And he kind of was trying to steady himself a little bit, but it also looks like a fair catch signal, so the officials didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. It happened in the NFL on Sunday, too, where somebody kind of
did the same thing.
And I understand it because, it's
close.
It's close, and I understand why they do it. It's a safety thing. Okay. So.
And It's one of those things where hypothetically,
but he also saved them 20 yards by catching it.
He did. It was a great catch, great everything. So that at least was big. But I've seen a lot of improvement from Zion Tracy.
I also think he has the ability to break one here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know he got, I think, a 60-yarder finally, and we saw it and was happy about it. Nick Singleton, he is so. I was going to save him for a later day, but now I want to talk about this.
Sure.
He broke one that got called back for a block in the back. He broke another one for like
kickoff against
return.
Maryland, 66 yards.
Yeah. He's broken multiple, and you could see the last few months or so, he has looked healthy, and he is a problem on kickoff returns. How difficult is it to return a kick? Like, I don't think people get how difficult it is, and now we're seeing him every single kick.
Let's start with this. Punts are more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Mm-hmm. It's a spinning ball.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, every once in a while, they'll do a nose-down punt.
Mm-hmm.
And all this traffic flying at you.
Mm-hmm.
Punts are difficult.
You have a half second to react, basically.
Right. Kickoffs, bum, 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 tumbling, taking it. Now, at this point, it's not like I'm at full speed now.
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay? You get to a point, it's all about feel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just killed the analytics people. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring up the feel thing, but it's actually real.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Where you get there, and if you have a good feel for it, like, okay, there it is, boom.
Mm-hmm.
Then you hit high speed. That's what Singleton does.
Yeah.
Larry Johnson did that as a kickoff returner.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Great kickoff return guy. Kurt Warner, great kickoff return guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, same thing with Nick. Nick is an excellent return guy because he has a feel for it and he knows when to hit it and accelerate and get through there. Also, the blocking scheme's been great.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and we're talking, Saturday is going to be interesting since you brought that part up.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't look like a day of touchbacks. When it's that cold, the ball is not going to travel as far.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have to make judgment. This is where the judgment part comes in on kickoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Should I return it or do I take it at the 25?
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the judge. That's where the off guy comes into play. The off guy talks to him as well. I also have to wonder on a day like this, Penn State in the game at Minnesota, right? And they maybe did it once against Maryland because Maryland did punt a lot, where they dropped back Liam Clifford as the second guy.
Yeah.
Okay. And a day like, it depends on if the wind is at your back or not, right? But you may have to, that off guy is important to let you know of like, hey, we're going, right? Because he's like, me, and he may be yelling, go, 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 right? Because they've got it set up. It may not be as high a kick as they want. There's a bunch of things that go into it. The same thing with Daniels on their kickoff returns. Because it just, on a day like Saturday, you're anticipating it's going to be cold. The ball will not travel as far for obvious reasons, right? Which way are you kicking? Wind at your back or wind at your face? Because Beaver Stadium is a north-south field.
Yeah.
Right? Minnesota's different. That's an east-west field. USC's east-west. Right? But Beaver Stadium's north-south. Well, that brings with it the wind predominantly 9 times out of 10 blowing from north to the south end. Now, in there now with the way it's constructed, it used to be without, they'd have the end zone. It would go through that upper deck like a funnel.
Yeah.
Straight. I'll never forget 1978 Pitt. Joe Paterno, Penn State kicked off to start the game. The wind was so impactful that Penn State had the option for the second half, and Joe kicked off. And Pitt could not move the ball against the wind, and Penn State scored points with the wind.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's one of those like, okay. But I'm saying now it's different. Now it comes through there and it hits that south side, and then it now it swirls.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still impactful in there as to how it could play. So back to Nick, the ability of Singleton to, again, have a feel for it as to when to hit it, when to kick it at high speed, find the gaps. And then, look, I think somebody was doing a Next Gen on TV, and Next Gen had him at 21.5 miles an hour on the kickoff return. Like, okay.
Dude can fly.
I mean,
he does have one of 3 100-yard kickoff return touchdowns in Penn State history. So.
Actually, there's 6. He's one of 6.
Oh, I only saw 3. I may have been wrong. I know. Criminal of me. My bad.
What are we doing?
But he has started to have the burst.
I'm kidding you.
I know.
Look, the running game against Oregon was outstanding.
Oh, my God. Katron Allen in the pass game was as impactful as I've seen him all season.
They need to do more of that. I thought the offensive line played really well. And, it's interesting looking at the makeup of that offensive line. Like when you talk about, everybody's talking about conditions and everything like that. Okay. Well, your left tackle is from Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Your right tackle is from Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's interesting. Where did he play in college, by the way, before he came to Penn State?
Wisconsin.
It's almost like it's cold there.
But you look at your center. Where's your center from?
Well, where is he from, Steve?
Pennsylvania.
Wow, I see a trend here.
All right. Your right guard is from Delaware.
Same area.
And your left guard is from Washington State. Okay. The road graders have a lot of experience playing when it's a little chilly and seem to thrive on it.
Yeah. It's going to be very fun. Speaking of offensive line, Nolan Rucci. He has been playing at right tackle, filling in where Donko has been hurt.
Yep.
He's played really well. He has continued to improve and impress as he has played in that right slot.
Talk to his dad about this, who knows more about playing the position than I'll ever dream of. He played 8 years in the NFL, mostly with the Patriots. Brother. I'm getting sick of this. No, I'll get to it in a second.
Of course.
All right. It has to do with the disappointing narrative of big games. I'm like, what the heck? After a while, it's like, I got asked about this except Ohio State did not ask it, by the way. Okay. You were talking about Nolan Rucci. And I said, Todd, I said, he's big, he's powerful. I said, I like his footwork. I said, when he first got here, I thought he was a little stiff. I said, now his flexibility is tremendous. He says, Steve, he's grown more in 1 year here than he did at any point before here. I'll take that from Dad.
Yeah. Not bad.
He knows what he's doing.
I think he does, yeah.
Here's the story, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Penn State, James Franklin, chance to change a disappointing narrative. Okay. I'll give you the exact answer I gave on the Oregon shows, and I'll give you the exact answer I gave on the shows I did yesterday. Or Ohio State did not ask it. They actually asked about football. And I said, excuse me. I said, he's won a Rose Bowl. He's won a Fiesta Bowl. He's won a Cotton Bowl. He's won a Big Ten championship game. Before the shenanigans, and I do mean shenanigans, started at Michigan, he'd beaten Harbaugh 3 out of 4 years. I said, how many big games is he supposed to win? Right? And again, I go back to the conversation Jack Ham and I had with Nick Saban when he was here for practice last month. Spoke highly of you, by the way.
Thank you.
And Jason Lord.
Didn't believe in Jason Lord.
No, he compared him to Bevo. So it's like, that wasn't very nice. Right? He did not. Right? He said, this big game thing, he said, just bugs me. Right? And I said, and all I said was, well, in what sense? Just to kind of draw him out as to what he was thinking. He says, he says, Steve, how many big games do you have to win to get to the big game? Now, last I checked, he has reasonable experience. The narrative comes from the fact that a lot of people do not have the concept of how difficult it is to win. That's what makes winning so gratifying. When you're around it every day and you see how much work and how hard they work to get there, winning's hard.
Yeah.
That's why it's so gratifying when it happens. That's why it's so disappointing when it doesn't. But it's hard, right? I've done all these games. I walked out of the booth in the games I just talked about and felt like they got big wins. A walk-off win at Iowa felt like a big win to me.
Yeah.
Am I missing something here? Right? I mean, even with a limited roster, a walk-off win again in Dublin felt like a big win at that stage for the program. Winning the Pinstripe Bowl at that stage of the program felt like a big win. Right? And it's amazing how narratives set in. And you can't shake it.
Yeah.
But you know what? They said that to Tom Landry for years.
Who?
Right? And John Madden. For
Never heard
years,
of him. Never heard of
They
either.
said that about both of those guys for years. Can't win the big one, can't win the big one. You know, because, I mean, the Cowboys were an expansion team. They get to the championship game against the Packers. They lose in the last series of the game by 7. The Ice Bowl game, the quarterback sneak. Can't get over the top. Got blown out by Cleveland. Meredith retires. Then he finally won a Super Bowl. Well, there you go. John Madden, won one Super Bowl in his career. One. It was the last game he ever coached, but one.
He won it.
For 10 years, he had an incredible run. What was his big problem? The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Okay? You want to know how many big games John Madden won? I mean, who do you think stopped the Dolphins' long winning streak? Okay?
Yeah.
It was the last second play, the whole deal. I think it was Davis caught the touchdown pass from Kenny Stabler. Right? I mean, Patriots in the playoffs, they were able to rally, come back. There was a controversial call, where they thought Russ Francis was interfered with. Okay, that happens. He has no control over that. Can't win the big one. Can't win the big one. Over and over and over again, people want to attach labels to people. Now, obviously, winning Saturday's game is huge for this team. You're trying to keep your season going. It is win, survive, advance. It is the NCAA tournament. Football style.
Yeah.
It's big for this team. Every time I answer the question, I always get, I never thought of that. I didn't realize that. What bothers me is when it's written about, and it's written by people who covered all the games.
I don't know.
I can't. It bothers me wasting my time answering the question. All right, let's answer the question. Here we go. Right, and you're polite about it, the whole thing, but you're like going, can we just talk about the game?
Yeah.
Right? It's a big game. Let's talk about the game. The side issues are the side issues. I could care less.
And tomorrow you'll chat about the game with
Rich Phillips
of Ray Didigeron as well.
And Ray Dittinger will be on as well tomorrow.
And then we'll be back Thursday, just a couple days before the game. Yeah. I'm excited. I know you're excited. No Jason Lord this week. You have to enjoy yourself. It's your Christmas present to you, basically.
Is he on next week?
Just Monday.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with